Chapter 1. At Lady Windermere's. It was Lady Windermere's last party before the spring holidays. There were many more guests in Bentinck House, her London home, than usual. There were important men from the government in their best suits. All the beautiful women were wearing their most expensive dresses, and at the end of the biggest, longest room stood Princess Sophia of Karlsruhe, a short, heavy little lady with small black eyes and big rings on her fingers. She spoke loudly in bad French and laughed at everything that people said to her. It was a wonderful party. There were so many different and interesting people there. Sweet ladies from old families talked with angry young men. A number of rich old artists stood on the stairs and talked together like poor art students. It was one of Lady Windermere's best nights. Lady Windermere looked very fine with her clear white neck, her large blue eyes, like the bluest of spring flowers, and her gold hair. It was a strong gold color, not cheap yellow, but the rich gold of sunlight. As a young woman, Lady Windermere had a number of romantic adventures, which made people think that she was interesting. She married 3 times, but because she only had one lover through all those years, the world soon stopped telling terrible stories about her. She was now 40, had no children, and enjoyed pleasing herself, which is the secret of staying young. She was pleased when Princess Sophia stayed for hours. When the princess left at 11:30, Lady Windermere began talking to her old friend, the Duchess of Paisley. "Where's my palmist?" she asked suddenly. "Your palmist?" cried the Duchess, nearly jumping out of her seat. "Yes, I can't live without him at the moment." "You are always so unusual, Sisti," said the Duchess, trying to remember what a palmist was and hoping that it wasn't like a manicurist. "He looks at my hand twice a week," went on Lady Windermere. "Oh dear," said the Duchess to herself. "He really is like a manicurist after all. How terrible to ask an uninteresting guest to a party like this. I hope he isn't English." "He says that I have an interesting hand," replied Lady Windermere, "and that it's a good thing that my thumb isn't any shorter, because a very short thumb means that you look on the dark side of life and prefer to leave the world behind and to be alone." The Duchess felt happier at once. She understood that a palmist was someone special. "Ah, I see. And can he see the future in your hand too?" she asked. "Of course," answered Lady Windermere. "Both the good and the bad things? I think he prefers the bad. Next year, for example, I'm in great danger on the ground and at sea, so I'm going to live in a large balloon and pull up my lunch every day in a little lunchbox. It is all in my hand, you know. I think everyone should visit a palmist once a month. That way they will know what they shouldn't do. Of course, they'll still do it, but it's nice to hear about bad things before they happen. Now, can somebody find Mr. Podgers? Or do I have to look for him myself?" Lord Arthur Savile, a tall young man, stood listening to their conversation with a smile on his face. He was thinking of Sybil Merton, the woman he wanted to marry. Turning to Lady Windermere, he said, I'll go and find Mr. Podgers for you, but what is he like? Well, he isn't unusual or romantic looking. He's a short, fat man with a large, bald head and gold glasses. He looks like a family doctor. I'm afraid. People are very strange these days. They never look like what they are. I had a famous murderer here last year, and he looked just like a nice old vicar and told funny stories all evening. Ah, there you are. Mr. Podgers. Now I want you to read the Duchess of Paisley's hand. Duchess, you must take off your glove. No, not your left hand, dear, the other one. Oh, Lady Windermere, are you sure this is all right? Said the Duchess, pulling off an old white glove. Of course not. Nothing interesting ever is, replied Lady Windermere. But that's how the world goes. Mr. Podgers, this is the Duchess of Paisley. Duchess, this is Mr. Podgers. And if you say that her mountain of the moon is bigger than mine, I shall stop coming to you. I am sure there's nothing like that in my hand, said the Duchess. You are right, said Mr. Podgers, looking at the little fat hand with its short, square fingers. You have a very small mountain of the moon, but you have a very long lifeline and will live happily for many years to come. Your headline is not really very strong, but your heartline. Oh, tell us about her romantic adventures, Mr. Podgers. I'm afraid, Lady Windermere, that there isn't anything to tell. I see her feeling the same as she always has, and staying with her husband. The Duchess looked pleased. Go on, Mr. Podgers, she said. You are very careful about spending money, I see, he said. And Lady Windermere began to laugh loudly. Well, Mr. Podgers, I think that you have read the Duchess's hand beautifully, she said. And now you must read some other hands too? So Mr. Podgers read a number of other people's hands. After only a short time, some guests were afraid and didn't want him even to look at their hands. But Lord Arthur Savile was interested in hearing about his future. Will Mr. Podgers read my hand? He asked Lady Windermere. Of course, but I must tell you that Sybil is coming to lunch with me tomorrow. So if Mr. Podgers learns that you get angry easily or are going to be ill in later life, or have a wife in Bayswater, I shall tell her everything. I'm not afraid, answered Lord Arthur. Sybil knows me as well as I know her. That is why she's marrying me. But when Mr. Podgers saw Lord Arthur's hand, his face went yellow, he said nothing. His bald head shook, and his fat fingers went cold. Lord Arthur felt afraid. I am waiting, Mr. Podgers, he said. We are all waiting, cried Lady Windermere. Mr. Podgers dropped Lord Arthur's right hand and looked carefully at his left one. His face went white. At last he looked up and pushed the corners of his mouth into a smile. It is the hand of a fine young man, he said. Yes, we know that already, said Lady Windermere. The question is, will he make a fine husband? All fine young men do that. Lady Windermere, let me see. He will go on a journey soon, a holiday with his new wife, of course, and someone in his family will die. Not his sister, I hope, cried Lady Windermere. No, no, said Mr. Podgers. Someone not as near to him as that. Oh dear. So I have nothing important to tell Sybil when she comes tomorrow, said Lady Windermere. Oh, well, time for supper then. Are you coming, Duchess? Yes, my dear, said the Duchess. Moving slowly to the door, I'm tired, but I must say I have enjoyed myself. And your manicurist wrist palmist was most interesting. Lord Arthur stood by the fire. Some guests left and some stayed. His sister walked past him to the supper table with Lord Plymdale, and Lord Arthur looked even more unhappy. He felt that something terrible was waiting in the future for him. He nearly cried to think that anything could possibly come between him and Sybil Merton. Chapter 2. A Bloody Crime. Lord Arthur Savile stood by the fire, and his face was as white as stone. For the first time in his rich and careless life, he felt deeply unhappy. Could Mr. Podgers really see something terrible in his hand? Was it a bloody crime or something worse? Couldn't he escape from it in some way? Suddenly, Mr. Podgers came back into the room. When he saw Lord Arthur, his face went green. For a minute, both men were silent. The Duchess has left one of her gloves here. She asked me to bring it to her, said Mr. Podgers at last. Ah, I see it on that chair. Good night. Mr. Podgers, wait. Could you answer a question before you go? What did you see in my hand? I must know. Why do you think I saw more than I told you, Lord Arthur? I know that you did, and I'll pay you £100 if you tell me what it was. What is your address? I'll send you the money tomorrow. Mr. Podgers' green eyes looked suddenly interested. Here is my visiting card, he said, and he gave a small card to Lord Arthur, who read it. Mr. Septimus R. Podgers, Palmist 103, a West Moon Street. I am there from 10 until 4, said Mr. Podgers. Be quick now, said Lord Arthur. What do you see here? He held out his hand. Mr. Podgers closed the door. Very well, Lord Arthur. Please sit down. 10 minutes later, with a white face and wild eyes, Lord Arthur ran out of Bentinck House and down the street. The night was very cold and windy, but his hands were hot and his face was on fire. He ran on and on. A policeman looked at him with interest when he ran past. Then a poor old man came up to ask him for some money, but when he looked into Lord Arthur's face, he felt afraid and he left the young man alone and didn't speak to him. Suddenly, Lord Arthur stopped under a streetlight and looked down at his hands. He thought he saw red blood on them and gave a cry. Murder! That is what the palmist had told him. Murder! The knight knew it. The wind whispered it in his ear. The dark corners of the street were full of it, and the houses along the street laughed about it. First he came to the park where he listened to the silent trees. Murder! Murder! I'm going to murder someone, he said to himself, shaking terribly. He felt a strong need to stop someone in the street and tell them everything. Then he left the park, crossed Oxford Street, and walked on, down poor narrow streets. Two women in bright cheap dresses laughed at him when he walked past them. Now and again he heard shouts and cries from the houses, and he saw poor old people sitting in dark corners of the street. At the corner of Rich Street, he saw two men reading a poster. He crossed the street to look at it. He read the poster many times and thought of the murderer running from the police. Perhaps one day they were going to put his name on a murder poster. The thought made him feel ill, and he turned and hurried on. When the sun came up, he found himself in Piccadilly Circus. From there, he walked slowly home to Belgrave Square, looking up at the beautiful red sky. "I hope that there won't be a storm later in the day," he said to himself. By the time he got to Belgrave Square, the sky was a light blue and the birds were beginning to sing in the gardens. When Lord Arthur woke up, it was 12 o'clock and the sun was high in the sky. A servant brought him a cup of hot chocolate in bed. He drank it, and then he got ready for his morning bath. He got into the deep water quickly and lay back in it. Then he put his head right under the water to wash away the terrible thoughts of the night before. When he got out of the bath, he felt happier. After breakfast, he lay on the window seat and smoked a cigarette. On a table near him was a large photograph of Sybil Merton. She was so beautiful, with her fine small head, her soft mouth, and her dark eyes. He couldn't marry Sybil with a future murder waiting to happen, but what could he do about it? He thought a lot, and at last he had the answer. He decided to murder someone first and then to marry Sybil. But who could he murder? Murderers, of course, usually kill their enemies, but Lord Arthur didn't really have any enemies. In the end, he wrote down the names of all his friends and family on a piece of paper. After looking at this list for some time, he chose Lady Clementina Beauchamp, or Lady Clem, as she was called by everybody. Lady Clem was a dear old lady who lived in Curzon Street. She was one of his cousins on his mother's side of the family and was just the right person to murder, he decided. Next, Lord Arthur sent his servant to West Moon Street with £100 to pay Mr. Podgers. After that, he went out to the flower shop and bought some flowers to send to Sybil. Then he went to the library to read some books about different poisons. He chose poison as the best way to murder Lady Clem. It was quiet and clean. After all, he didn't want his name in the newspapers. Sybil's parents weren't very modern in their way of thinking, and perhaps they wouldn't like their daughter to marry a murderer if the police caught him. In the end, he found out about a poison called aconitine. The books explained that it worked fast and didn't hurt you when it killed you. He wrote down how much aconitine you needed to kill someone, and then he left the library and went to St. James's Street to buy some. Chapter 3. A Yellow Pill. Lord Arthur walked into Pestle and Humby's, the expensive chemist's shop in St. James's Street, and asked Mr. Pestle for some aconitine. The little man, who liked to help the lords and ladies himself when they visited his shop, said quietly that a letter from a doctor would be necessary. But then Lord Arthur explained, "You don't understand, Mr. Pestle. It's for my large old Norwegian dog. It has to go. I'm afraid because it's too dangerous. It bites my servants on the legs all the time." "A dangerous dog that bites servants. I see. That's all right then," replied the chemist. "And I must say that you know a lot about poisons, my lord," he went on, smiling. Then he gave a yellow aconitine pill to Lord Arthur immediately. Some minutes later, Lord Arthur bought a beautiful little silver box in a Bond Street shop to put the yellow pill in, and then he went at once to Lady Clementina's house. "Well, young man," cried the old lady when he went into the room, "why haven't you been to see me all this time?" "Lady Clem," said Lord Arthur, smiling, "I'm so busy." "Yes, I'm sure that you spend every hour of the day with Miss Sybil Merton, visiting shops and being romantic together. Why does marrying make people so romantic these days? It didn't happen when I was young." "Dear Lady Clem, I haven't seen Sybil for 24 hours. I think she is living in her favorite clothes shop." "Yes, and that's why you've come to see an old woman like me. I'm not stupid, you know. I have a hard life. I'm ill all the time, and the doctors only come to take my money. They don't do anything for my stomach." "Ah," said Lord Arthur, "I've brought you something for that. It's a wonderful medicine made in America." And he took the silver box from his pocket and gave it to her. "What a beautiful box, Arthur. That's so kind. And is this the medicine? It looks just like a sweet. I'll take it now." "Oh, no, Lady Clem," said Lord Arthur, taking her hand. "You mustn't do that. If you aren't feeling ill and you take this medicine, you feel terrible. Wait until you're feeling bad and then take it. I'm sure it'll surprise you." "Very well," said Lady Clem. "I'd love to try it now. It looks so very good, but I'll wait until the next time that I'm ill." "And will that be soon?" asked Lord Arthur with interest. "I hope not this week, but you never know." "So you're sure that you'll be ill this month then?" "Yes, I'm afraid that I will, but you're being very nice to me today." "Arthur, I think that Sybil is good for you, and now I must have a rest before lunch. Goodbye. Give my love to Sybil, and thank you for the medicine. Don't forget to take it." "Lady Clem," said Lord Arthur, standing up, "of course not, and I shall tell you if I want some more." Lord Arthur left Lady Clem's house feeling very happy. That night he spoke to Sybil Merton. He told her that he couldn't marry her at once because he had to finish some business first. He asked her to wait until the end of the month, and he told her that everything would be fine, but that she had to wait. Early next morning, he wrote a letter to her father explaining that they needed to postpone the wedding for a time. Then he left for a holiday in Venice. His brother, Lord Surbiton, came by yacht from Corfu and met him there, and they spent a wonderful fortnight together. They visited Venice in the mornings. They asked people to tea on Lord Surbiton's yacht in the afternoons, and at night they ate in the best restaurants and smoked lots of cigarettes. But Lord Arthur wasn't happy. Every day he bought the Times, hoping to read about Lady Clementina's death, but every day there was nothing. After 2 weeks, Lord Surbiton felt bored, and both brothers went off to Ravenna. A week later, Lord Arthur came back to Venice. At his hotel, he found a number of telegrams and letters waiting for him. He read Sybil's letter first. "Dearest Arthur, terrible news. On the 17th, Lady Clementina had dinner with your mother, but went home early with a bad stomach. The next day, her servants found her dead in bed with a smile on her face. She has given her house in Curzon Street to you. Please come home soon. Lots of love, Sybil. Lord Arthur sent a telegram to Sybil at once to tell her that he was coming back to London. He was sad about Lady Clem's death and angry with Mr. Podgers for making him a murderer. But he was also deeply in love, and now he was free to marry Sybil. When he arrived in London, everything went very well. Sybil's parents were nice to him. They chose the 7th of June as the date of the wedding. And Sybil said to Lord Arthur, "I hope that nothing will ever come between us again." Not long after, Lord Arthur and Sybil went to visit Lady Clementina's house in Curzon Street to burn old letters and papers that nobody wanted. In the middle of this, Sybil gave a sudden cry of surprise. "What have you found, Sybil?" asked Lord Arthur, smiling. "This beautiful little silver box. Arthur, can I have it?" It was the pill box. Lord Arthur's face reddened. He remembered the poison. "Of course you can have it," he replied. "I gave it to Lady Clem myself." "Oh, thank you, Arthur," said Sybil. "And can I have the sweet that's in it too?" She went on. "How strange. I didn't know that Lady Clem liked sweets." The blood left Lord Arthur's face. "The sweet, Sybil? What do you mean?" he whispered slowly. "There's a yellow sweet inside the box, that's all. It looks very old, and I'm not really going to eat it, so don't worry." "But what's the matter?" "Arthur, your face is so white." Lord Arthur ran across the room and took the box from Sybil's hand. In it was the yellow poison pill. So he wasn't Lady Clementina's murderer after all. This news was nearly too much for him. He dropped the pill into the fire and sat down heavily on a comfortable chair with a terrible cry. Chapter 4. A Bomb in a Clock. Mr. Merton was not very happy when Lord Arthur Savile postponed his daughter's wedding for a second time. Mrs. Merton was very angry and spoke to her daughter about not marrying Lord Arthur, but Sybil's heart was full of love, and she agreed to wait for the wedding. Lord Arthur was disappointed about the poison not working, but he decided to try again. This time he felt that a bomb was the best thing to use. He got out his list of family and friends, and after thinking very carefully, he decided to murder his uncle, the Dean of Chichester. The Dean was a very clever man who loved clocks. He had a house full of them. Some were 400 years old, and some were very modern. Lord Arthur decided that the easiest way to kill his uncle was by putting a bomb in a clock and sending it to him. But where can you buy a bomb? Then he remembered his friend, Count Ruvaloff, a young Russian who sometimes went to Lady Windermere's parties. Ruvaloff was writing a book about Peter the Great, but people said that he was a revolutionary. Lord Arthur drove to the Russian's rooms in Bloomsbury to ask him for his help. "I want a bomb," he said. "Where can I get one?" "Lord Arthur," replied Ruvaloff, "I never knew that you were so interested in politics." "My dear Ruvaloff, politics don't interest me," answered Lord Arthur. "It is family business only." Count Ruvaloff looked at him in surprise. Then, Seeing that the young English lord truly meant what he said, he wrote an address on a piece of paper, put his name at the bottom, and gave it to him. The English police would love to have this address, my friend, he said. Well, they won't get it from me, replied Lord Arthur, laughing, and he shook hands with Ruvaloff and ran downstairs. Looking at the paper in his hand, he went at once to Soho. There, near Greek Street, he found a place called Bales Court. He knocked on the door of a little green house, and a strange foreign man asked him what he wanted. Lord Arthur gave him Count Ruvaloff's paper. The man took Lord Arthur into a dirty front room. After a few minutes, Mr. Winklecoff, as he was called in England, came into the room with a fork in one hand. Count Ruvaloff told me to come, said Lord Arthur. My name is Mr. Robert Smith, and I want to buy a clock with a bomb in it. Pleased to meet you, Lord Arthur, said the little German, laughing. Don't be surprised. It's my job to know everybody, and I remember seeing you one evening at Lady Windermere's. I hope she is well. Would you like to sit with me? I am just finishing my breakfast. Lord Arthur was very surprised that Mr. Winklecoff knew his name, but he followed him into the back room of the house and sat and talked in the friendliest way with this famous revolutionary. Clocks with bombs in are not good for foreign murders, said the little German. Trains are often late and clock bombs can easily explode before they get to where they are going. But if you want a bomb and a clock for use in England, I can get you one with no trouble. Can I ask you who you want to kill with it? If it's a policeman or a Scotland Yard detective, then I'm afraid I can't help you. The English detectives are our best friends because they are so stupid. We can do everything we want here. We don't want to kill any of them. No, no, said Lord Arthur. I don't want to kill a policeman. The clock is for the Dean of Chichester. Do you feel strongly about the church, Lord Arthur? No, no, he is my uncle. This is family business, not church business. I see, said Winklecoff. And he left the room and came back a few minutes later with a beautiful French clock. On top of it, there was a little revolutionary woman standing on a terrible monster with 6 heads. Here is your bomb. That's just what I want. But how does it explode? That is my little secret, said the German. Just tell me 2 things. What time do you want it to arrive at the dean's house? And what time do you want it to explode? I will do the rest. Can you send it off at once? Asked Lord Arthur. Not today. I have some important work for some friends in Moscow. Well, could you send it either tomorrow night or Thursday morning? And I'd like it to explode at 12 o'clock on Friday, please, said Lord Arthur. The dean always has lunch at that time. Now, how much is that? Well, the clock was £4, and the bomb inside will be £1. For myself, nothing. Lord Arthur, I am only too happy to help one of Count Ruvaloff's friends, and I do not work for money. Lord Arthur put £5 on the table, thanked the little German for his time, left the house, and went back home feeling very happy. For the next 2 days, Lord Arthur was terribly excited. On Friday at 12 o'clock, he went to his club to wait for the news. All afternoon, Lord Arthur waited, but no news came. At 4 o'clock, the evening newspapers arrived, and Lord Arthur read them all from front to back. But there was nothing about someone murdering the Dean of Chichester with an exploding clock. There was no news from Chichester at all. He felt very disappointed. The next day, he went back to Bales Court in Soho to see Mr. Winklecoff again. The little German was very sorry about the accident, and he promised to send another clock bomb to the Dean of Chichester as soon as possible. "And I don't want any more money, Lord Arthur," he said. But by now, Lord Arthur didn't really trust bombs to do the job well, and even Winklecopf agreed that it was difficult to find good gunpowder. "I'm sure that something went wrong with the clock, Lord Arthur," he said, "but perhaps the gunpowder will explode without it. I haven't lost hope." But Lord Arthur was not very hopeful. Chapter 5. By the River Thames. 2 days after his second visit to Mr. Winklecoff, Lord Arthur's mother, the Duchess, showed him a letter. "You must read this," she said. Lord Arthur took the letter and read it. "The Dean's House, Chichester, 17th May. My dearest aunt, thank you for your last letter. We have had a fine time this week with a clock which someone sent to father last Thursday. It came in a box from London, and father is sure that the person who sent it knows his work, because not very long ago he spoke about liberty in church, and he later wrote it all down in a book called Is Liberty Too Free? And this clock had a woman dressed as Liberty on the top. I didn't think she looked very nice, but father said that the clock was a French Revolutionary piece and that, for her time, little Miss Liberty was all right. Well, our servant Parker took the clock out of its box and father put it in the library. Then, on Friday at 12 o'clock, we were all sitting in the library when the clock whirred and exploded. Some smoke came out from under Miss Liberty, and she fell off and broke her nose on the floor. Maria cried, but it was very funny, and James and I laughed, and father laughed too. When we looked inside the clock, we saw that it was an alarm clock. You can turn it to any time, put some gunpowder in, and it explodes when you want. Father said that it couldn't stay in the library because it was too noisy. So James took it into the schoolroom, and he now does nothing but make it whir and explode all day long. Do you think that Arthur would like one of these clocks for his wedding present? Perhaps they are in all the shops in London these days. Father is sure that they will sell well, for they show that liberty can't be on top forever and must fall down. Reggie has just made the clock explode again, and father says that the boys must take it outside. I don't think he likes it very much now, but he is happy that people read his books, and the clock is very cleverly made. Father sends his love, and James, Reggie, and Maria send their love too. Lots of love, dear Aunt, from your niece, Jane Percy. Lord Arthur looked sad after reading the letter, and his mother laughed. "My dear Arthur," she said, "I shall never show you a young lady's letter again. But what do you think of these alarm clocks? They sound wonderful." "I don't think they're so wonderful," said Lord Arthur with a sad smile, and he left the room. Upstairs, he lay down on his bed, his eyes full of tears. I've tried twice, but I still haven't murdered anybody. I must tell Sybil that I can't marry her, he thought. He knew that it would hurt her, but with time she would forget him. For himself, all he wanted was to die. At 7:30, he dressed and went to his club. His brother was there with a group of other young men, and he had to have dinner with them. He listened to their stories and conversation without interest, and after coffee, he left the club. When he walked past the front desk on his way out, they gave him a letter. It was from Mr. Winklecopf, and it asked him to come to Bale's Court the next day. He promised to show him an umbrella bomb that exploded when you opened it, the latest thing from Geneva. Lord Arthur threw the letter away. He really didn't trust bombs now, and he didn't want to murder anybody. He walked down to the River Thames and sat by a bridge looking out at the dark waters of the Thames below him for hours. The clock at Westminster sounded midnight, and still Lord Arthur watched the river. At 2 o'clock, he got up and began to walk east. Everything looked strange in the moonlight, a picture of black and silver. Then suddenly he saw a man in front of him looking over the wall down into the river. The man looked up, and Lord Arthur saw his face under the streetlight. It was Mr. Podgers the palmist. A clever idea came to Lord Arthur. He walked silently up behind Mr. Podgers, took him by the legs, and pushed him over the wall and down into the Thames. There was a cry, the noise of something falling into the river, and then nothing but the palmist's tall hat moving round and round on the water. Then that too went down. "Lost something?" came a voice. It was a policeman. "No," said Lord Arthur, "nothing important." 2 days later, he read the news in the evening newspaper. Famous palmist dies in Thames. Yesterday morning at 7 o'clock, a guest from the Ship Hotel found the body of Septimus Podgers, the famous palmist, by the River Thames. The palmist's friends feel sure that he killed himself because he was working too hard. Lord Arthur ran out of his club with the paper in his hand and went to Sybil's house. "My dearest, let's have our wedding tomorrow," he cried. "But Arthur, my dress isn't ready yet." She laughed. 3 weeks later, the Dean of Chichester married them in St. Peter's Church, and the best people came to the wedding. Years later, when they had 2 children, Lady Windermere went to visit them at their country home, and she talked to Lady Sybil out in the garden. "Do you remember Mr. Podgers?" she said. "I was very disappointed when he died." "Didn't he see that coming to him?" "I don't think much of palmists these days." "Oh, Lady Windermere, don't say anything against palmists in front of Arthur," said Lady Sybil. "Why not?" "Because," said Lord Arthur, coming round the corner of the house, "a palmist brought us together," and he looked lovingly into his wife's dark eyes. "The model millionaire. A poor young man. Hughie Erskine was a charming young man with no money. Now, if you aren't rich, being charming doesn't help you much." Hughie sadly did not understand this. Poor Hughie. With his brown hair and his gray eyes, he was a great favorite with women, and men liked him too. But he wasn't very clever, and he wasn't good at making money. When his father died, all that Hughie got from him was an old army sword and some old books. He put the sword on his wall and the books into his small library. Luckily, one of his aunts gave him £200 a year to live on. He tried to get a job, but nothing agreed with him. He worked in a bank for 6 months, but money had no interest for him. Then he tried selling tea, but it was too foreign for him. After that, he went into selling wine, but he didn't really have a taste for it. In the end, he did nothing. To make things worse, Huey was also in love. The girl that he loved was Laura Merton, the daughter of an old army man, once a colonel out in India. Since coming back to England, the colonel had terrible stomach trouble and was angry all the time. Laura loved Huey and Huey loved Laura, but they didn't have sixpence between them. The colonel liked Huey, but he didn't want Laura to marry a poor young man. "We'll talk about the wedding when you've got £10,000 in the bank," he often said. Huey became very sad after conversations like that and had to talk to Laura for hours before he felt happy again. One morning, on his way to Holland Park, where Laura and her father lived, Huey went to see his great friend, Alan Trevor. Trevor was a strange-looking, untidy man with wild red hair, but he painted wonderful pictures, and everybody in town wanted to buy them. When Huey came in, he found Trevor busy finishing a picture of a beggar. The picture was as big as the beggar himself, for the old man was sitting in one corner of the room. He had a long, sad face and was wearing a thin, old brown coat, which had a number of holes in it. On his feet, he wore cheap old shoes, and in his hand, he held out a soft old hat, waiting for people to put money in it. "What a wonderful model," cried Huey. "Yes, he is wonderful, isn't he?" agreed Trevor. "You don't find beggars like him every day. He's got a face out of a picture by a famous Spanish or Dutch painter, Velasquez or Rembrandt, perhaps." "Poor old beggar," said Huey. "What a sad face he's got. But I'm sure that it will help you to sell your picture for a lot of money." "Of course," said Trevor. "Nobody wants to buy a picture of a happy beggar." "How much does a painter's model get for his work?" asked Huey, sitting down in a comfortable chair. 12 pence an hour." "And how much will you get for the painting?" £2,000. "Well, I think that your model needs to get a percentage of what you get. It isn't easy sitting there and not moving for hours. But I have to stand here for hours looking and painting, and buying the paint itself is a job too. But just be quiet now. I'm busy." After some time, a servant came in and told Trevor that the man who made his frames was outside and wanted to speak to him. "Don't go away, Huey," said Trevor on his way out of the room. "I'll be back in a minute or two." With Trevor out of the room for a time, the old beggar got up and moved his arms and legs. Huey felt very sorry for him, and he put his hands in his pockets to see what money he had on him. All he could find was £1 and a few pence. "Poor old man," he thought kindly. "He needs this money more than I need it." And he went over and put the pound into the old man's hand. The old man looked at him and smiled strangely. "Thank you, young man. Thank you," he said. Almost at once Trevor came back and Huey left to go to Laura's house. His face reddened when he thought of his present to the old beggar. Oh, Huey, you are stupid, cried Laura later when Huey told her all about it. Why did you give a pound away? Chapter 6. An interesting model. That evening, Huey walked to his club at about 11 o'clock. He found his friend Alan Trevor in the smoking room there, with a drink in his hand. Did you finish that picture of the beggar? Huey asked. Oh, yes, I finished it, and now it's in its frame and ready to sell. Oh, and the old model himself was very interested in you. I had to tell him all about you. He wanted to know who you were, where you lived, and how much money you got a year. My dear Alan, cried Huey. I don't want to find the old man outside my door when I go home. But you're just joking, of course. Poor old thing. I'd like to do something for him. I think it's terrible for anybody to be so sad. I've got lots of old clothes at home. Do you think he'd like some of them? His coat was full of holes. Of Yes, but he looks wonderful in it. I really wouldn't like to paint him in an expensive new coat. But I'll tell him what you've said. You painters have no feelings, said Huey. A painter's heart is in his head, replied Trevor. And now tell me about Laura. How is she? My old model was very interested in her. You didn't tell him about her too, did you? Of course I did. He knows all about the colonel with the bad stomach and the hard heart, and all about your beautiful Laura and the 10,000 pounds too. So you told that old beggar everything about me, did you? Cried Huey angrily, and his face went very red. My dear boy, said Trevor, smiling. That old beggar, as you call him, is one of the richest men in Europe. With the money that he's got in the bank, he could buy all of London without thinking twice. He has houses in London, Paris, Berlin, Vienna, Moscow, Rome, Madrid, and New York, and he always uses gold plates on his dinner table. What do you mean? Cried Huey. What I say, said Trevor. The old man that you saw today in my house was Baron Hausberg. He's one of my greatest friends. He buys lots of my pictures, and a month ago he asked me to paint him as a beggar. I really don't know why. He's a millionaire, and when someone's a millionaire, you don't ask questions, but I must say that I thought he looked wonderful in his beggar's coat. Or my beggar's coat, if you want to know. He was wearing some old clothes that I bought years ago in Spain. Baron Hausberg, cried Huey. Oh no, because I felt so sorry for him. I gave him a pound, and he sat back in his chair with a very long face. You gave him a pound, laughed Trevor. Well, you won't see that again. The Baron's business is other people's money, you know. Why didn't you tell me he was a millionaire? Said Huey angrily. Well, to start with, Huey, said Trevor, I didn't know that you like giving money to strangers. I can understand a man who wants to kiss a beautiful young lady model. But giving a pound to a smelly old beggar, that's too much. And also when you arrived at my place, I wasn't sure what to do. The Baron likes his little secrets. So I thought it was better not to tell you his name. I mean, He wasn't in his best clothes? I'm sure he thinks that I'm really stupid, said Huey. No, you're wrong there. He was very happy when he left my house. He couldn't stop smiling to himself. I didn't understand at first why he wanted to find out everything about you, but I can see why he was interested in you now. He'll put your money in the bank for you, Huey, and every 6 months, he'll pay you a small percentage, and that way, he'll have a wonderful story to tell his friends after dinner. Oh dear, said Huey. I feel ill. I'm going home to bed. Alan, please don't tell anyone about this. If all my friends find out, I shall never come to the club again. Huey, wait a minute. Don't run away now. I think that giving a pound to someone that you thought was a beggar was a very generous thing to do, laughed Trevor. But Huey left the club and walked home, feeling very unhappy. The next morning, when Huey was eating his breakfast, there was a knock at the door and his servant brought in a card. He read it with interest. Oh dear, I'm sure that he wants me to say sorry for what I did to the Baron yesterday, thought Huey. He told his servant to show Mr. Nodden in. A nice old gentleman with glasses and gray hair came into the room. Are you Mr. Erskine? He asked in a soft, kind voice. I am, replied Huey. I have come from Baron Hausberg. The old gentleman went on. The Baron. Look, please tell the Baron that I'm terribly sorry for what happened yesterday, said Huey, and his face was suddenly very red. The Baron, said the gentleman with a smile, has asked me to bring you this. And he took an envelope from his pocket and gave it to Huey. On the outside of the envelope, Huey read, a wedding present to Hugh Erskine and Laura Merton from an old beggar. Inside the envelope was a check for £10,000. When Huey married Laura, Alan Trevor was the best man and stood at his friend's side in church. And Baron Hausberg said a few words at the wedding breakfast, too. Trevor turned to Huey with a smile when the Baron sat down. What a lucky young man you are, he said. You don't find millionaire models every day, but a model millionaire is even harder to find. The Sphinx without a secret. The woman in the yellow carriage. One afternoon, I was sitting outside a cafe in a Paris street watching the world go by. Over my drink, I watched young and old, millionaires and beggars walking past me, and I thought about how different people's lives are. Then, suddenly, I heard someone calling my name. I turned round and saw Lord Murchison. He was a very great friend from my university days. Murchison, I cried. I haven't seen you since we were at Oxford together, and that's nearly 10 years ago. I'm so happy to meet you again. We shook hands warmly. I remembered him well. I liked him a lot at Oxford. He was handsome. He loved going to parties. And above all, he had a good heart. My other university friends and I always said that he was a model gentleman, but for one thing, he always told the truth. But secretly, I think that we admired him for being so truthful. But he was different now to how I remembered him. There were lines on his face, and I could see that he was worried about something. I knew him well and felt sure that he wasn't losing sleep about modern politics or about changes in the church. I decided then that a woman had come into his life. "You've changed a lot, Murchison," I said. "Are you married?" "No," he answered. "You have to understand a woman if you want to marry her, and I'm afraid I don't understand women at all. Women want men to love them, not to understand them." "Well, I can't love a woman if I don't trust her." "You have a mystery in your life," I said. "Tell me about it." "Let's drive somewhere," he answered. "I can't talk freely here with all these people round us." We got up to look for a carriage. "No, not a yellow carriage. Let's take that dark green one." "Where shall we go?" I asked, getting into the green carriage. "It doesn't matter," he answered. "Let's go to a restaurant far from the center of town. We can eat there and you can tell me about yourself." "I want to hear about you first," I said. "Tell me your mystery." He took out a photograph of a woman and put it in my hand. "What do you think of her?" he asked. I looked at the photograph carefully. She was a romantic woman with large eyes and long hair. I felt that her face held a secret, but was it a good secret or a terrible one? Her smile wasn't sweet, but full of mystery. "She looks very interesting," I said. "Tell me about her." "After dinner," he said, and began to talk of other things. When our coffee and cigarettes arrived at the dinner table, I again asked Murchison to tell me about the woman in the photograph. He sat back in his chair and told me his story. "One afternoon, I was walking down Bond Street in London at about 5 o'clock. There were lots of carriages on the road, and the traffic was moving very slowly. I saw a little yellow carriage near me, and when I walked by it, the face from the photograph that I showed you earlier looked out at me. I was immediately interested. I couldn't stop thinking of that face all night. And the next day, I walked up and down Bond Street, but I couldn't find the lady again. I began to think that she was only a dream in my head. A week later, I went to Lady Durasdale's house. On the invitation, it said, "Dinner at 8 o'clock." But at 8:30, we were still waiting. At last, a servant came in and said, "Lady Alroy has arrived." Then Lady Alroy walked slowly into the room, and I saw at once that she was the mystery woman. She wore a beautiful silvery gray dress, and the stones and the rings on her fingers were like lovely moons. I felt happy when she sat next to me at dinner, and just for something to say, I said, "I think I saw you in Bond Street a week ago. Lady Alroy." Her face went white, and she replied in a quiet voice, "Please don't speak so loudly. Someone will hear you." I was disappointed that our first conversation was going so badly and began to talk of the theater. She spoke in a quiet, musical voice, but didn't say much. I felt that she was afraid of people listening. I fell deeply, stupidly in love. And the mystery about her made her twice as interesting. After dinner, I asked her when I could visit her. "Tomorrow at 4:45, she whispered, and then she left. Later, I learnt from Lady Durasdale that she was a widow with a beautiful house in Park Lane, but that was all I could find out about her. Chapter 7. The House in Cumnor Street. I drank another cup of coffee, smoked another cigarette, and listened with interest while Lord Murchison went on with his story. The next day, I arrived at Lady Alroy's house in Park Lane at 4:45. Her servant opened the door to me. "I'm afraid Lady Alroy has just gone out," he said. I went to my club feeling disappointed and unhappy. It was all very strange. In the end, I wrote a letter and asked her when I could visit again. A number of days later, I got a strange note from her. Park Lane. "Dear Lord Murchison, I will be here on Sunday at 4 o'clock. Please visit me then. Yours, Lady Alroy, P.S. Don't write to me here again. I will explain why when I see you." On Sunday, I went to visit Lady Alroy at her house in Park Lane, and she was most charming. But when I was leaving, she said to me, "If you want to write to me again, please don't use my real address. Put your letter in another envelope and send it to Mrs. Knox at the library, Green Street. I can't receive letters in this house. Don't ask me why." In the next few months, I saw a lot of Lady Alroy, and there was always a mystery about her. Sometimes I thought that there was another man in her life, but I wasn't sure. One minute I thought that I understood her, and the next minute I knew that I didn't. In the end, I decided to ask her to marry me. I was tired of meeting her in secret. I wrote to her at the library. "Lady Alroy, can I see you next Monday at 6 o'clock? Lord Murchison." She agreed to meet me, and I felt so happy. I thought that I loved her for herself, but I see now that I loved her because of her mystery. And then one day I found out what that mystery was. Or I think that I did. On the Monday, I went to lunch at my uncle's house and I wanted to go to Piccadilly after lunch. I walked the short way there through some very poor and dirty little streets. Suddenly, I saw Lady Alroy in front of me. She was wearing a big hat with a heavy veil and was walking very fast. When she arrived at the last house in the street, she went up the steps, took a key from her bag, opened the front door, and went in. Here is her mystery, I thought, and I looked carefully at the house. It had lots of rooms to rent in it. On the top step, I saw her handkerchief. "She's dropped this," I said to myself, and put it in my pocket. Then, being a gentleman and not a detective, I went to my club. At 6 o'clock, I visited Lady Alroy's house in Park Lane. When I went in, she was lying on a sofa wearing a beautiful silver dress with moonstones on it. "How nice to see you," she said. "I have been here all day." I pulled the handkerchief out of my pocket and gave it to her. "You dropped this in Cumnor Street this afternoon," I said. She looked at me, afraid, but didn't say a thing. "What were you doing there?" I asked. "Don't ask me," she said, hiding her face in her hands. "You must tell me. I came here to ask you to be my wife." She looked up and said, "Lord Murchison, there's nothing to tell." "You went there to meet someone," I cried. "That is your mystery." She turned terribly white and said, "No, I did not." "Tell me the truth," I shouted. "I am being truthful," she replied. I was angry and said some terrible things to her. In the end, I ran from the house and went away with my friend Alan Colville to Norway. After a month, I came back to London, and the first thing I saw in the Morning Post was the death of Lady Alroy. I shut myself in my rooms and saw no one. And then you went to the house in Cumnor Street, I said. Yes, he replied. I knocked at the door and a friendly old woman opened it. Do you have any rooms to rent? I asked. Well, there was a lady who was renting the rooms on the ground floor, but I haven't seen her for weeks. She answered. I showed her Lady Alroy's photograph. That's her? She said. And when is she coming back? She is dead, I explained. Oh no, cried the woman. She was my best lodger. She paid £3 a week just to sit in my sitting room sometimes. Did she meet anyone here? I asked. No, said the woman. She came alone and saw nobody. She just sat here and read books and sometimes had tea. What could I say? I gave the old woman £1 and went home. But what do you think? I find it so hard to explain. Was she telling the truth or not? I think that she was, I replied. I feel sure that Lady Alroy was a woman who loved mystery. She rented those rooms because she liked going there with a veil over her face, dreaming that she was someone in a book. She loved mystery, but I'm afraid to say that she herself was a sphinx without a secret. Lord Murchison looked down at the photograph in his hand. Yes, perhaps you're right, he said at last.